Hi guys, welcome to Oversteer F1, first ever Formula One blog. We used to write the blog, but we decided to move to YouTube and G Plus and also Twitter. So just having a kind of weekly or bi-weekly kind of blog talking about the latest races, latest incidents. And today's topic is Formula One's preview for the season ahead. Starts a week on Sunday in Melbourne. First race of the season at Albert Park. I've now been watching Formula One for well over 2 decades, and still very passionate about it. And hopefully, this kind of forum, this video blog, will give you guys an insight into some stuff that's kind of spotted, and also spark off some general discussion topics that we can have, and just continue through the live Q&A. Or we can also do it through the Twitter feeds and Google Plus feeds. So looking forward to it. Basically, today's show is just going to talk a little bit about pre-season testing at Jerez and Barcelona, and we're also going to just talk around title favourites or contenders, and just briefly touch upon Vettel and how he's settling in at Ferrari, and also Fernando Alonso's move to McLaren Honda, and what you can kind of expect from him this year. And we'll wrap it up there, and then we'll probably put a poll afterwards to see if you guys kind of agree with the predictions that we've got from the season. So looking at pre-season testing, what I'd say is that the Mercedes team are miles ahead and remain way ahead in terms of the rest of the pack. They've done some great testing on their chassis, which is probably, I'd say it wasn't a poor aspect of last year's car, but it was probably the area with the biggest scope to improve. If you look at their engine, and the rumour is that they've pulled out this extra 60 to 70 brake horsepower, and the engine's been proving very reliable over testing. But if you look at their chassis in particular, a lot of time's been spent on little modifications around the barge board areas. You can see the Viz flow paint on this image to try and track the wind tunnel results from Jerez, these images. There's another image which I don't expect to see too often. Just to note that these images are provided through Darren Heath's website. He's by far the best photographer I've come across in Formula One and some of his other photography, but just want to supplement some of the conversations with some of his images. Hopefully he doesn't mind. It's hopefully good exposure for his website as well. But yeah, don't expect to see this image too often this season with a Ferrari in front of a Mercedes. But these are some of the images from Jerez. Mercedes, like I say, pretty far ahead. Most of the testing was done with one engine. A lot of mileage, a lot of great reliability. When they took that show, the fuel out and whacked on a pair of super softs, doing some qualifying runs in Barcelona, they were easily 7 or 8 tenths faster than the competition, and I would expect that to happen again. I think in qualifying trim, they'll very rarely be touched. I think in race trim, again, it'll be whether some of the mechanical failures, reliability plays a part. I do expect some of the other teams to perhaps get a little bit closer just with engine tokens and development that they've got, especially Ferrari. I would expect to get a little bit closer. But definitely from everything we've seen this year, it's going to be Mercedes at the front. In terms of drivers, so well, there's a couple of drivers that I would say that are going to be probably fighting with Mercedes. I would say Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo again. I don't think you can write off Vettel, but Alonso, I think there's too much work to be done at McLaren Honda, and I think it's maybe something that we'll see towards the end of the season, him coming a little bit more into his own. If you look at Lewis Hamilton's mindset, he's come into the season and he's world champion, and I think what you're going to see is where Lewis will either prevail or fall will again be based on his mindset. I think that's the biggest threat to him retaining his title. Is I think he has an edge over Rosberg in the races. He's a better racer. I think he's a faster driver. Rosberg is going to be so focused this year. Everything's settled in his life. He's now married, expecting a first kid. Hamilton, though, is a little bit turbulent again. I think last year when he got his relationship off the track back together with Nicole Scherzinger, he seemed to be a lot more settled. there's a lot of belief about God, and he seems to be channeling a lot of his energy through religious beliefs, which is a very different Lewis Hamilton to what you saw in 2008 and 2009. But I think the biggest question mark has still got to be, can he mentally keep it together? If he can, then I reckon he's a favourite for the title. I just had a little feeling that Rosberg might win the championship this year. I think Hamilton off track has a lot of interest out with Formula One, and with the breakup with Nicole Scherzinger, even his body language and some of his tone in pre-season testing, he was slipping back into that kind of downbeat Lewis Hamilton that seems to make a lot of kind of emotional mistakes on track. We saw that quite often this final year at McLaren. He was having a bit of a turbulent time, and he was making some silly mistakes, such as Valencia with Maldonado and other ones that don't pop into the memory. But yeah, I think Hamilton's his own worst enemy at times, and I think Rosberg, if I'm honest, will be super motivated this year, and I think he'll get it together in the races. He was definitely doing that towards the end of the year. If you look at Abu Dhabi, minus the mechanical fault, in Brazil, he was superb at Interlagos, even under the pressure of Hamilton. I think if he can maintain that, and if he can keep himself focused and not get into the mind games, then I pretty much reckon Rosberg is my favourite for the title, which would surprise quite a lot, because I reckon everyone will be going with Hamilton. But we'll wait and see how that goes. Out with Mercedes, so again, I expect McLaren to be going a bit of a development year. I think Ferrari a bit of a development year. I think Williams and Red Bull will probably be the closest. I think Williams' problem last year was they found themselves in an unusual position for a recent Williams team in terms of being on the podium and having the opportunity to win races. I think the Williams of the 80s and 90s, maybe early 2000s, would have gone for it a lot more in some of the races last year. They were a little bit conservative in Austria. They really could have won the race. A couple of other races as well, they were kind of going for the podium and the points and trying to get those on the board. And there's nothing really wrong with that when you think of the year before. They had such a horrendous year. They need to get the revenue and the money in. But I think this year offers them a platform to really just push it a little bit more. I think they should be confident that they will be in. They'll definitely be in the running for podiums. Absolutely, race wins. They may be in for race wins. I'm not sure. I think it's going to take again some mistakes from Mercedes to let them back in. But I definitely think Williams have got a good package. Pat Simmons will go for evolution, not revolution again. And I think that should then lead to them hopefully having a good season again. It's again how quickly they can evolve their chassis design. But they've definitely got two good drivers. Massa's definitely got a new lease of life at Williams. You saw last year he was providing consistent results towards the end of the season. I think Bottas, they definitely have a star of the future. Very, very fast, very consistent, very calm. And I think if they give him the platform, the car to win races, he'll absolutely deliver in that respect. So if we move on to Red Bull and we look at Red Bull for this year, so it's going to be an interesting dynamic at Red Bull. We saw their pretty cool camo designed testing car. Obviously, they've reverted back to their traditional colours for the start of the season, but it was quite nice to see something kind of different in testing, especially after the disappointment of the McLaren Honda launch with their silver livery. Red Bull, I think there's no doubt in my mind they had the best chassis last year. Otherwise, they wouldn't have won the 3 races and probably dragged themselves to the front on many occasions. Their engine was inferior last year. If you look at the other Renault teams, just look at Lotus, for example, they had a horrendous time. So for Red Bull to have even won 3 races was pretty remarkable last year, and another tip to the hat to Adrian Newey and his development team and aerodynamics do play a part. I do agree it's an engine formula just now, but if you look at Red Bull, they've definitely delivered a great chassis last year, and I expect that to be even better this year. It's just, can Renault give them the power unit to challenge Mercedes? And I think they're going to be a little bit short on power again. If you look at pre-season, I do expect Ricciardo and Kvyat to really push the team forward. They're both young drivers. They're both really passionate and they're hungry. And again, that will bode them well. I think we'll see a little bit kind of development curve for Daniel Kvyat. I think if you look at his age, last year there was a few mistakes, but he was consistent, and I expect to see that happen. Red Bull again, they're really good at supporting all the young drivers, and they're keen to get those guys to progress. So yeah, I think Red Bull probably mixing it a little bit with Williams might get the odd win, but I can see Mercedes probably driving ahead in that respect. So probably the team that have brought the most question marks over pre-season was Ferrari. So last year, massive disappointment, obviously driving to them splitting with Fernando Alonso. They've brought in Sebastian Vettel, who had a pretty tough year last year, beaten by his teammate comprehensively. You can see he was pretty demotivated, so I think it's the right thing for him to go to a new team and a new challenge and try and group people around him. I think Ferrari need that as well a little bit, as much as Alonso was the best driver, in my opinion, in Formula One, and has been for a number of years. It was just becoming a little bit stale, and I think they just need to freshen up. With James Allison's influence on the chassis this year, with the development of their engine, now that the regulations have been opened up a little bit, then expect to see Ferrari making a few steps forward. I don't particularly think they're going to win a race this year, although they've kind of put some murmurs out there that they will. I'd pretty be surprised unless it's a remarkable wet race or kind of crazy circumstances, but I do expect them to be on the podium a bit more than last year. Alonso kind of made fifth on the grid last year, his regular position. I think Raikkonen in the car seems to be a bit more suited to him as well this year. So I would expect Raikkonen to push him a little bit forward, if I'm honest. This will be Raikkonen's last season. I don't see him really dragging it out. If I'm looking at last year, if I was in charge of Ferrari, I would have had Jules Bianchi and Alonso as my pairing for 2015, and I would have created all the shake-ups that were required to try and move the team forward. I think they would have been a superb team. I think Vettel and Raikkonen doesn't really excite me, to be honest. I think if you look at Vettel last year and you look at Raikkonen from a motivational perspective, it's not quite there. I do see Vettel probably pushing it a bit forward and doing the same as what Hamilton did at Mercedes. Hamilton spent so long at McLaren, similar to Vettel with Red Bull, and you definitely saw Hamilton kind of come to the fore, develop a bit more as a man, and he's matured a lot and become probably a better driver all round. So whether that happens for Vettel, time will tell. I think on the chassis front, Ferrari have done a better job. Seems to be more drivable. It's just a question, really, how much their engine can pull them to the front and how good their chassis is. So time will tell. But in terms of the car itself, it's aesthetically pleasing. They've gone for the longer nose. I would expect them to probably shorten that mid-season. I think past the crash tests that are required. I think McLaren on the same boat. Ferrari strangely have brightened the car at the last test. Apparently they did a filming day and they thought it was too dark. Which is a bit of a shame, because actually one of my favourite Ferrari cars of recent years was the 2007 darker kind of scarlet one. But they've darkened it this year, so they've lightened it this year again, which is what you can see there. And if we finally move on to probably the most unknown quantity, and that's McLaren Honda. So there was going to be no doubt they were going to face the challenging testing period. If you look at Red Bull last year, they only did about 1,500 kilometres in testing. I think McLaren had done about 1,700, but it's been pretty horrendous by comparison to Mercedes' 7,000 kilometres or so that they've managed to pump in there. Honda will probably drive them forward. I think my fear for McLaren is that Honda's last few seasons in Formula One, they just had horrendous reliability. 2007, 2008. They really struggled to get to grips with it, and it's a real shame, because I think if you look at the chassis design for McLaren, it looks really impressive. I'd be surprised if that chassis isn't in the top 2 or 3 of the cars, just looking at the way they've kind of packed the engine, and then definitely around the rear of the cars, just superbly packaged, very similar to Red Bull. And I think Peter Perdomo's influence from Red Bull moving to McLaren's clear to see. Their front wing as well. So it would be fascinating. I would have loved to have seen a Mercedes engine plumped in the back of that car, because I think that would have really driven McLaren to probably challenge the title this year. There would have been a question mark obviously over the chassis, but I think definitely looking at it, it looks good. And from what we've heard out of McLaren's technology centre, it's a good car, and it's going to be a challenging one for this season. Alonso's obviously out of the first race after his concussion at Barcelona. I think that's not a huge loss. I think Alonso actually might just take that as a plus in a way, as much as he can do. Obviously, no driver wants to be away from F1, but if you look at this pre-season testing they've got, I think it might just allow Alonso to observe, see some of the telemetry, see the way Carm's performing. I think, to be honest, Melbourne's a great track for Alonso anyway, historically. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he's ever won at Melbourne. But yeah, he's I think coming into Malaysia, it's a track where he really excels. And I think it might just be the right platform to obviously push it forward, depending on how the performance of the car. I've got fears that McLaren are really going to struggle to get into Q3, if I'm honest. Maybe even Q2, because their car's not the greatest. So Mana or Marisha will probably be at the back of the grid. There's no doubt about that. Lotus probably are going to be the dark horses for me this year. I think last year you never really got to see the true capability of their chassis because the engine was just so poor and the reliability was awful. I think putting that Mercedes engine in the car, I think Grosjean's a far more matured man since he's settled down, got married to the child, had a really good season, 2012, 2013. Last year, not so much, but it wasn't really of his own making. Maldonado, definitely a pay driver, in my opinion. I don't expect much from him. But it'll be fascinating to see Lotus. Their car looks neat. It looks good packaging. Definitely from pre-season, they seem quite stable. I can see them probably being a regular point scorer this year. Maybe just challenging every now and then. But we'll wait and see how they react to Mercedes engine being in the car. That's pretty much it for me, guys. I think I just wanted to have quite a brief session with you, just introduce you to the video blog, touch on some of the images, touch on pre-season testing. It'd be really cool to hear your view on what you think. I think for me, my tip for the title is going to be Rosberg, Hamilton, and I'm going to say Vettel will finish third in the title. It's probably a little bit radical based on where Williams are, but I've got a feeling Ferrari might develop quite well over the season with their engine. That's my top three: Rosberg, Hamilton, and Vettel. We'll see how that pans out towards the end of the season, or even after the first couple of races. I might be eating my words. I think dark horses, Lotus, definitely for me. I think Ricciardo again will do well in the Red Bull. And I think the biggest fascination for me is going to be McLaren Honda, how that relationship develops. I think Alonso is willing to give it a year to really get it going. I think it'll be fascinating to see how their car develops over the year. I would expect them to have the largest trajectory in terms of development and an upward curve in terms of performance. So we'll wait and see how that goes. But yeah, been a pleasure talking to you guys, and hopefully we'll do another session in a couple of weeks. Thanks. Cheers.